Introduction. Maybe I tell you a little bit about my research in Indonesia. I started to do research in Indonesia in 1987. So you can imagine that I accumulated quite a lot of experience, mainly in Sumatra, in Bengkulu and Jambi, and more recently I've shifted my interest to Papua, where I just came from yesterday. So this goes back quite a while. This story here, I started to do this research in 1989, and it took some time until I really understood what was going on there and why. So as you can see from the title, is it okay? Can you understand? So as you can see, in this area, and still, even though the area is shrinking, but in the highland parts of, in the southern highlands of Jambi, in an area called Znoj and also Serampas, people plant rice according to the Hijra calendar. So this sounds a bit strange, but it's a fact. And I never really understood why they do that for a long time, until I became a historical anthropologist and went into the sources and found a surprising explanation. Okay. Yeah, maybe something else. Here you can see where this area is. In Jambi, as you all know, there changes are going on there. When I started to do my research there, about 70% of the province was still forest. Now, it's maybe less than 30% of forest is left, and lots of palm oil plantations have been installed, mainly in the lowland of Jambi, and many migrants are coming into Jambi, and some of these migrants also come to the highlands, and this brings about a lot of changes. Among others, this agricultural calendar is disappearing in places where there are a lot of migrants. So this is how the houses looked in the past. There were still a few left. Now there's only one left. I paid for its rehabilitation, but these houses here, they have disappeared. What's interesting, these houses are all directed to Qiblat, to the west, but at the same time upstream. So they built the villages where the river flows from Qiblat. That's a combination of two cosmological orders that's quite interesting. I think these people are very good at combining ontologies in a way. So I just learned that syncretism is a negative word. We shouldn't use it. But I think kind of making synthesis of ontologies. People grow rice on 3 types of fields. This is grassland agriculture, so people grow rice here for one season, and then they let some grass grow back, and after about 6 or 7 years they can plant rice again. In between they have vegetables, the buffaloes can graze. There's also sawa. You see here, this area, it's called Sungai Tenang, and this river is called the Mentenang River, that means a calm river. And it's a nice area. It's about 1,200 meters above sea level, really nice climate. And you can see on the fields there are rice granaries. And these rice granaries play an important role in their economy. Here you can see 2 full rice granaries. And people told me that they usually store 1 to 2 harvests worth of rice in these granaries. They always use the rice on the top, so the rice below it gets quite old. I have eaten rice that's about 30 or 40 years old. It can be stored so long because it's stored on the how do you call it? Tankai. Okay, so it's not separated from the stem, but it remains intact and can be stored extremely long. And the third kind is, of course, shifting cultivation in forests. That's what they do here. They plant rice in a freshly burned forest. Besides growing rice, people at that time, because they were still very isolated, you had to walk 2 or 3 days until you reach the next market with a road. They grew cash crops that were expensive, brought a good price. So you can see here they brought cinnamon, and in the bags this is coffee. So they, on the one hand, they had subsistence economy with rice and vegetables, and on the other hand, they had some cash crop production. This is also a nice combination of two forms of sacral roofs. On the one hand, you have the stupa, this stupa kind of roof, and on the other hand, you have the cupola, the Western Asian form of the sacral roof. So they just combined the two. What was surprising for me to see that in these villages, which are very far from circulation from roads and so on, there have been a lot of hardship. So in the 1920s and 1930s, in a small village that at that time had maybe 250 inhabitants, in the course of one generation, about 50 young men went on the Hajj. So Islam has been very important in parts of these villages, not in all of the villages. In other villages, you had still a lot of rice rituals and ancestor beliefs. But Islam was important in this area. This is also quite a strange picture. At the time I took it in 1989, I just thought that these young women were behaving a bit strange, with these dark sunglasses. And the headgear is actually meant for men, but they put it on. But about 4 years ago, I found a solution to the glasses, to the sunglasses. These young women have just finished the madrasa, and it's the wedding season. In this area, there's just normally just one day when several couples will marry, so they can slaughter just one buffalo. And the negotiations with whom they will marry were often going on until the last day before the wedding. So they were quite nervous, and they sometimes feared that some rivalry was going on for them, and they feared that their child, who will not be married with them, would send spirits to them. And that was protected. That was in the weeks before the marriage, before the wedding season. So that's why they protected this. Here's also an example of how they combined various beliefs. This is a ritual for the ancestors that's taking place also in the season after Ramadan. They would gather at the place where the ancestors have died, and they would feed the ancestors and give them various sacrifices. Apart from food, you can see some bayou attached. These are gifts to the ancestors. these are royal symbols, all royal symbols. And also the Indonesian flag, that's also a gift to the ancestors. So, all the humans, living humans, are gathered on the left side, and on the other side, the ancestors. So these kind of practices are getting rarer because, yeah, those more knowledgeable about Islam would say that this is not correct belief. In this area there were some megaliths, so those who are interested in archaeology and those who have also worked in areas with megaliths find this certainly interesting. There are not many of them, and they're all placed at crossroads. Later I found out that there was an old route going through this area, and these megaliths marked the place where probably somebody governing a federation of villages would be placed. Quite nice. They're called Batugong here. You can see the symbol of Tugong also on the old houses. So this is just to give you an impression of how it looks like in this area, or how it looked like 20, 30 years ago. Now, this is the rice cultivation according to the Hijra calendar in Znoj. People would germinate the rice and prepare the fields in the months of Muharram, and their goal was to have finished the harvest before Ramadan, so that they wouldn't have to work during Ramadan. The result of using the Hijra as an agricultural calendar, of course, is that it shifts to the season every 33 years. And since in Sumatra you also have a rainy season and a dry season, this creates some difficulties, because after a while, as you see, you will plant the rice in the middle of the dry season. And what will happen in the dry fields with the rice that is planted? Hard to tell. Well, in the highlands, the distribution of rainfall was so that you could count on some rainfall normally also after 1 or 2 weeks. So that was not such a big thing, but certainly, as you can see, the seasonal distribution of rainfalls, yeah, was quite marked. But there was never a real dry season with no rainfall in the mountains. So probably there was just a little bit less of a harvest if it was not ideal. When you harvested during the rain, of course it was more difficult to store it. So there are 2 questions, and later I will ask a third question, that are related to this rice growing schedule. How come that these people at all follow a cycle that is not in accordance with the seasons? And second, how could it be that it was introduced? There are old sources from the beginning of the 19th century, around 1800, that say that in Sukatenam and in Srampas, every village plants the rice according to their own schedule. So there was no coordinated rice cycle. But at the end of the 19th century, suddenly there were reports that the whole area plants the rice simultaneously. And according to the Hijra. So what was the reason they adopted the rice calendar according to the Hijra? That's a big question. I think that once it has been introduced, there were quite a lot of advantages in this calendar. But I'll come to this one. The first reference to such a calendar is from Willem Marston. He is a famous historian of Sumatra. He worked for the East India Company in Bengkulu, and he, basically, all his information was from the end of the 18th and the beginning of the 19th century. And he wrote, in In some districts, much confusion in regard to the period of sowing is said to have arisen from a very extraordinary cause. Anciently, say the natives, it was regulated by the stars, and particularly by the appearance of the big Banyak or Pleiades. But after the introduction of the Mohammedan religion, they were induced to follow the returns of the Puasa, or great annual fast, and forgot their old rules. The consequence of this was obvious. For the lunar year of the Hijra being 11 days short of the sidereal or solar year, the order of the seasons was soon inverted. And it is only astonishing that its inaptness to the purposes of agriculture should not have been immediately discovered. Marston is referring to the area of Minangkabau in this quote. I found another source that refers to this system, an article by a linguist, Van Ronkel, from 1940, about ancient Minangkabau month names. A strange name for the third month was Bulan Manyabi. How this name, which means nothing other than rice harvest month, could correspond to a month that passed through different seasons and agricultural periods is not entirely clear, but it is a fact that this is name explained by the alleged coincidence of that month with the rice harvest. He was describing the Hijra, and the Hijra had in part Arabic names and in part Malay names, and these names, the Malay names, referred to agricultural practices. So this is something that was still remembered in the form of month names, but it was not practiced anymore at the time of Muhammad. So this is the rice cultivation system that he described. So there was a Bulan Manabe, germinating month, there was a weeding month, and there was a harvesting month. The other names of the months were Arabic. Another source from 1940, but this time referring to Jambi. Jambi has been conquered by the Dutch, in part, the lowland parts already by the VOC, East India Company of the Dutch, and later the Dutch took it over, the Netherlands Indies, but there was a strong resistance in the highlands. And this resistance lasted until about 1902, until 1906. So these areas were conquered quite late. And this report is from 1914, let's say about 10 years after the conquest. Van Kool writes, for the planting period, they used to orient themselves on the constellations, especially Orion and the Pleiades. Later, they replaced them with the fourth month of the Muslim year, which shifts annually and therefore soon became unsuitable, which is why the government takes action against it. Really strong statement, I like it. 2 years later, the Sirikat Abang rebellion broke out exactly in this area. So, it is the same system more or less as in the highlands, but because it's in the lowlands, the rice grows a bit faster. In the highlands, it takes about 7 to 8 months until the traditional varieties, and here it was a bit shorter. So we have two different systems. One I call the Jambi system, with the harvest just before Ramadan, and you have the Minangkabau system, where the harvest takes place at a different time of the year. So the yellow parts are about 4 months of inactivity on the rice fields. You can see that in Jambi, the system that's still in place, you have the fasting months, you have Idul Fitri, you have also Idul Adha, all within this period of non-activity on the rice fields. So the big festivities, Islamic festivities, take place in this period. And also the big rice ritual, the Tau ritual, which is still practiced in some villages, and the wedding season is also during this time. Now, I come to the immediate causes why this calendar was introduced. I found a Dutch intelligence report from 1889. It says, it may further be mentioned that in Kerinci, the rice field activities are now coordinated on the same basis as in Indrapura. Indrapura is on the west coast, right across of Jambi. So that it is no longer tolerated now, as it was previously the case, that everyone can cultivate his rice fields at will. But all savas are now planted at the same time, and this at about the same time as in Indrapura. This is not very knowledgeable, this report. Very likely this refers to the Islamic rice calendar. So, the rice calendar, as described by William Marston, about the end of the 18th century, beginning of the 19th century. The rice calendar, as it was described in Jambi for the first time at the end of the 19th century, in my opinion, have to be seen in the context of conquest of Dutch conquest. So the Patrie Wars took place from 1803 to 1837. Marston's report is from 1811. The rebellion of Sultan Taha against the Dutch lasted from 1858 to 1904, and it really started only about in the 1880s when he was able to build a strong alliance that probably went until the west coast of Indrapura. And the Srikat Abang rebellion took place in 1916. In some parts of the highlands, this system disappeared quite quickly after the Dutch conquest, and we have seen that the Dutch actively fought against the system, but in Serampas and Sungai it persisted, and as I said, it's still there. So, I presume that this system was introduced in order for all the inhabitants of this region to have one period where they could jointly attack the Dutch. They had it, so they could have a period to wage war. In Minangkabau, there was war, there was the Patrie War. In the highlands of Jambi, there was not much of a war, but there was the Srikat Abang rebellion in 1960. And this rebellion took place right after Ramadan. So they waited for the rice harvest to be over, and then for 3 months they could attack the Dutch, and they did so. And after that, the rebellion died down. People had to go back to their rice fields. So after, the Dutch didn't understand it, but they repressed the system, and one of the reactions was this rebellion. So, when I told the people in this area that probably war was the reason they introduced this calendar, they didn't believe it. They said, no way, it has nothing to do with war, it has so many advantages. One advantage is that everybody has finished the harvest just before Ramadan, so it's really good for the Islamic festivals, and everybody has time to attend these festivals, and also the weddings will be running, so it's just, masuk akal to have this system. And when I told them in other places of Sumatra, it doesn't exist, this is the only place in the world where people plant rice according to the Hijra, they said, wow, it's such a good system, why don't we do it? And planting at the same time also has important ecological advantages. In areas where the combination of planting of rice is not good, you will have a lot of damage from animals who eat it, especially in a place where there's a lot of forest, so you have to have a lot of wild animals, birds, but also pigs that come and eat your rice. I've done research in a neighboring area in Peru where people did manage to plant at the same time, and they just lost everything. All their fields were just eaten by the mother, essentially. So it's really important to plant at the same time, and this system is extremely efficient because nobody really has to force the people. It was just a tradition to plant after the big festivals. We would start the rice season. So no, there was no debate about it. Now, I would like to show you this map once again. You can see that the two areas where a seasonal rice calendar according to the Hijra has once been in place are Minangkabau and Jambi. And all those who are a bit familiar with the anthropology of Sumatra know that these are the two matrilineal areas of Sumatra. And of course, I like to see a connection. So, is it a mere coincidence that the Hijra as an agricultural schedule has been in use for long periods in the two only matrilineal areas in Sumatra, in Minangkabau and in Highland Jambi? This is a woman who owns this house. She also owns the rice fields and the rice granaries. So this is a matrilineal society. You heard about this matrilineal woman. She is very strong. It's not just any woman. These women are really proud and they're the heads of the families in a way. Anyway, I'm sorry. Yes. Please do so. Anyway, these women, these areas are also Muslim areas. So that's a big paradox. How come that the Muslim areas can be at the same time matrilineal? That's a big risk. But having lived in such an area for 2 years, I must say for the people that's not a problem. In this area, as I said, women on the rice fields, they're on the rice granaries, and they traditionally, when they still were practiced, they also did the rice rituals. So everything connected to growing of rice was the task of women and female shamans. So these women had to adapt to the Islamic calendar, of course. They couldn't do the rice rituals anymore at the time they wanted to do, but they had to do them sometime in between the Islamic festivals. But by introducing this calendar, both rituals could take place one after the other. So in a way they were not in conflict. They were just put into a sequence. So in a way there was a compromise between Islamic festivals and more animist festivals for a long time in this area. Not in all villages, but in some villages. So and in a way this symbolizes also this compromise between matrilineal and Islam. It's just putting everything, making one thing after the other creates the possibility that there's kind of compromise. So what's important, what's in a way the irony of this Islamic calendar and agriculture is that this calendar turns the Hijra into a rice calendar, into a ritual calendar for growing rice. So in a way the big festivals are taking place according to growing rice, like the old rice rituals did at the same time. So in a way, the Muslim leaders there, they had to accept that rice growing was still sacralized in a certain way. I think I have to come to a conclusion. This system is not optimal. I think if people would plant rice at the same time and follow the seasons, the average yield would probably be a bit higher. But these people here never sold their rice. They just try to have enough rice for themselves. So if there, in some years it was a bit less rice, in some years there was a bit more, it just didn't matter too much. They still had enough. So they didn't optimize the return on their investment on the rice fields. If they needed money, they planted cash crops like cinnamon, coffee, and other things. And it was the main who went to the market to get the money. Today, they also plant potatoes and chilies and so on for an income, but not rice. Rice is still subsistence food. But things are changing. The government also tries to introduce fast-growing rice varieties. They try to entice them to make rice into a commodity. People are not really responsive because for them rice is still a subsistence commodity, even if it's fast-growing rice. But the market orientation of the economy is growing, and the rice starts to be less important. Now there are many households who stop growing rice because they say, we need money, we don't need rice, we can buy rice in the market. So in a way, this community function of the rice calendar is getting weaker and weaker. Those who still plant rice still follow this cycle, but the social meaning of the cycle is diminishing. So I forgot to add the conclusion here. Anyway, what I would like to say is that, as a conclusion, is that this system has been extremely sustainable. It allowed people to plant rice at the same time to assure decent yields. It allowed them to have food security, even food sovereignty, for a long time, for about 100 years now. There has been never a crisis with rice in these 100 years. So it was really a well-functioning system. Ecologically, it was also very sustainable. They grew their rice without any fertilizer, without any pesticides, because these were locally adapted varieties. So, in a way, this was a system that was extremely socially and ecologically sustainable and supportive of the community. In a way, it was not just an economic activity, but it was at the same time social and also a ritual activity. This is now changing. People, as I said, are orienting themselves more towards market economy, and I'm sure that this security and also sustainability of the economy is being jeopardized also. So, as an anthropologist, you know, we always are quite romantic and we idealize the past and the indigenous knowledge, but in this case, I think a point can be made that this was really a wise system. Okay, thank you.